The shadow carver of Oṣupa village in the land of our ancestors. It is said that every man casts a shadow, but not every shadow is a mere servant of the light. Most are content to mimic our steps, to stretch with the morning sun and shrink at noonday. But in the village of Oṣupa, nestled in the crook of a sleeping mountain, there lived a young man who knew the truth. His name was Kaelo, and he was a shadow carver. He did not work with mahogany or iroko wood. His tools were a set of obsidian knives that never needed sharpening, and his canvas was the very darkness that clung to a person's feet. With the focus of a weaver and the precision of a surgeon, Kaelo could coax a person's shadow to separate from the ground, to lie flat and still upon a mat of woven reeds like a piece of dark, supple leather. He could feel its texture, the smooth, untroubled surface of a child's shadow or the rough, scarred darkness of an old warrior's. And he could change it. His father, the old carver before him, had given him one solemn warning on his deathbed, his voice as dry as harmattan leaves. The shadow is the soul's anchor to this world, my son. To alter a man's shadow is to play with the ink God used to write his soul. Do it only to mend what is broken, never to create what is not. Kaelo had honored that warning for years. His gift was a village secret, a power whispered about but never seen. But then came the year the rains forgot Oṣupa. The yams grew thin in the soil, the river shrank to a dusty brown ribbon, and the laughter of the children grew as quiet as the shadows at midday. The village was withering, and with it, Kaelo's patience. He looked at his father's knives, and for the first time, he did not see a tool for mending. He saw a tool for making. The first to come to him was Jabari, a farmer whose hands were as cracked and dry as his fields. His shoulders were stooped, not just from age, but from the crushing weight of failure. His shadow was thin, a pale, defeated thing that seemed to apologize for taking up space. Carver, Jabari pleaded, his voice raspy. My strength is gone. My yams are dying. Can you not mend my will? Kaelo remembered his father's words. Mend what is broken. Jabari was a broken man. This was permissible. That night, under the sliver of a new moon, Kaelo performed the ritual. He laid Jabari's shadow upon the reeds with his obsidian knife. He did not cut, but persuaded. He worked the edges, thickening the shoulders of the shadow, carving subtle, powerful lines into its legs. He smoothed out the slump of defeat, replacing it with the firm, straight back of a man in his prime. When he was done, he gently coaxed the shadow back to Jabari's feet. It clung to him with a new, dark vitality. The next morning, Jabari rose before the sun. He worked his fields with the strength of 3 men, his muscles moving with a power he hadn't felt in decades. His yams, as if drawing strength from his very presence, began to grow with a strange and rapid vigor. But there was a change. Jabari, once a man quick to laugh and share a story, became quiet. He was a man of few words, his eyes always fixed on the soil, as if a piece of his spirit was now forever tied to the earth he commanded. The village celebrated his miraculous harvest, but they noted his silence. Kaelo, however, saw only success. He had saved a family from starvation. He had mended a broken man. But word of his miracle spread like fire in dry grass, and soon his hut was filled with petitioners. A musician whose fingers had lost their rhythm, a merchant whose fortunes had dwindled, a young woman who believed she was not beautiful enough to attract a husband. They did not come to be mended, they came to be improved. And Kaelo, basking in the newfound glow of admiration and power, began to forget the second part of his father's warning: never create what is not. The one voice of caution in the village was Olan, the weaver. His craft was the opposite of Kaelo's. Olan worked in the bright sun, his loom clicking and clacking in a steady, patient rhythm. He took simple threads and, through time and dedication, wove them into beautiful, tangible cloths. He saw what Kaelo was doing and his heart was troubled. You are not adding to their spirit. Kaelo, Olan warned him one afternoon, his voice calm but firm. You are merely taking from one part of their shadow to give to another. A shadow must be whole. You are making them unbalanced. Kaelo scoffed. You see threads. Olan, I see souls. I am a master of my craft. You are a simple artisan. The insult stung, and Olan said no more, but his eyes held a deep sadness. The true test of Kaelo's power came when a terrible sickness fell upon Amara, the Opa's only daughter. She was the light of the village, but now she lay pale and still, her breath as shallow as a puddle. The finest healers could do nothing. The Oba was a broken man, and the entire village mourned. This was Kaelo's chance to prove that he was not just a mender of wills, but a master of life itself. The Oba, in his desperation, summoned him. They say you have a great and secret power, son of the Carver, the king said, his voice heavy with grief. Can you save my daughter? This was beyond mending. This was creation. This was shaping a shadow not to change a man's fortune, but to defy his fate. Kaelo's father's warning screamed in his mind, but the adoring eyes of the villagers and the promise of becoming a living legend were louder. He looked at the grieving king. I can, Kaelo said, his voice filled with a pride that bordered on arrogance. That night, the entire village gathered in a silent circle around the royal hut. Amara was brought out, her frail body cradled in a soft blanket. Her shadow, in the flickering torchlight, was a faint, tattered thing, barely there at all. Kaelo knew what he had to do. He would not just mend her shadow. He would sever the sickness from it entirely. He began the ritual. He chanted the ancient words, and with a great effort of will, he pulled Amara's shadow onto the woven mat. It lay there, trembling and weak. Beside it, a smaller, darker, more malignant shadow was attached to the shadow of the sickness. With his sharpest obsidian knife, Kaelo began to cut. It was not like shaping. It was like surgery. He carefully, painstakingly sliced the threads of darkness that connected the sickness to the girl's soul anchor. Finally, with a sharp, sickening tear, it came free. He pushed the healthy shadow back to Amara. She took a deep, shuddering breath, and color returned to her cheeks. Her eyes fluttered open. A joyous cry erupted from the village. The Oba wept with gratitude. Kaelo stood tall, his heart swelling with a godlike pride. He had done it. He had defeated death itself. He took the shadow of the sickness, a vile, writhing piece of darkness, and cast it into the fire, where it dissolved with a silent hiss. The celebration lasted 4 days. Kaelo was hailed as the village savior. He was given gifts, titles, and the respect of all. He had forgotten Olan. He had forgotten his father. He had forgotten humility, but the shadow of the sickness was not destroyed. It was merely unmade, unmoored, a void, a hunger without a master. And it began to wander the village, searching for a place to anchor itself. It did not make people sick. It did something far worse. It began to consume the parts of the shadows that Kaelo had so masterfully carved. It drifted into Jabari's farm, and the big, strong yams rotted from the inside out, leaving behind nothing but hollow shells. The strength Kaelo had carved into Jabari's shadow was devoured, leaving the farmer weaker and more broken than before. The hungry shadow drifted to the musician's hut, and the fame and rhythm Kaelo had gifted him curdled into a discordant, agonizing noise that no one could bear to hear. It found the merchant, and the luck Kaelo had carved for him turned to ash. His wealth was lost in a series of foolish bargains. The village's vitality began to drain away. The vibrant colors Olan wove into his cloths seemed dull and gray. The laughter of the children faded once more. They were not sick, but they were hollow. Their purpose, their ambition, their very essence was being consumed by the void Kaelo had unleashed. It was Olan who finally understood. He saw the hollowness in everyone's eyes and knew it was the echo of Kaelo's miracles. He gathered the villagers and led them to Kaelo's hut. When Kaelo saw their faces, he knew. He saw the empty fields, he heard the silent music, and he felt the crushing weight of his own arrogance. His father's words returned to him, no longer a warning, but a judgment. To alter a man's shadow is to play with the ink God used to write his soul. He had not been writing, he had been erasing. You must fix this, Olan said, his voice not angry, but filled with a deep sorrow. You must make us whole. Kaelo looked at his obsidian knives. He knew he could not recarve every person. The shadow ink was gone, consumed. A void cannot be filled with more carving. It must be filled with a sacrifice. With the entire village watching, Kaelo performed one last ritual. He sat in the center of the circle and, for the first time, he laid his own shadow upon the mat of woven reeds. It was strong and proud, a testament to his recent glory. Then, with tears streaming down his face, he summoned the hungry, wandering void. It came, a formless, chilling darkness, and with his knives, Kaelo did not fight it. He embraced it. He painstakingly wove the shadow of the sickness, the hollowness, the void, into his own shadow. The villagers watched in horror as his dark reflection on the mat writhed and contorted, becoming deeper, heavier, and immeasurably sad. When he was done, he anchored the new, burdened shadow back to his own feet. He stood up, and the village gasped. Kaelo looked the same, but his presence was utterly changed. He was silent. The vibrant, arrogant energy was gone, replaced by a profound, heavy sorrow that seemed to emanate from him. But as he stood there, a change began to sweep through the village. Color returned to Olan's cloths. A child laughed. Jabari felt a flicker of his old strength return. Kaelo had not destroyed the void, he had taken it into himself. He had filled the hole in their spirits with a piece of his own. Kaelo, the great shadow carver, the village savior, became a wanderer. He never spoke again. He walked from village to village, his own shadow trailing behind him, a deep, dark pool of sorrow and sacrifice. He was no longer a creator or a mender, but a living reminder.